All right, so today we're going to do part 2 of writing equations of circles. Yesterday, or last time, everything that we looked at was in standard form. This time, I'm going to give you something that's not in standard form. You're going to have to put it in standard form so that you can identify then the center and the radius. So, let's take a look. Now, before we do this, I want to review factoring for just 30 seconds, if even that long, just so you can see something. If you were to factor number 1, it is a trinomial with a leading coefficient of 1. So I'm going to go straight to my two parentheses. So I'm going to have an x and an x. And now I need two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6. So it'd be plus 3 and plus 3, right? Which you guys know there's nothing even mildly challenging about what I just showed you. But do you remember ever, at some point, you were told you could write it like this because there's two of them? Now, my hope is writing it like this looks like part of the equation of a circle. So our goal is going to be to get those. But let's do one more. If you were going to factor this one, two numbers multiplied positive 25 but add to negative 10 would be negative 5 and negative 5. So we can rewrite that as x minus 5 squared. So today, when we're completing the square, we are going to try and create these examples. These examples are called perfect square trinomials. So when they factor into you get the same thing twice when you factor them. So our goal is to do that. Now I also want to point something out to you. When it is a perfect square trinomial, notice that this here, is plus 6, and half of positive 6 is 3. Over here, this is negative 10, and half of negative 10 is negative 5. These are not coincidences, so keep that in mind. So even though I might say, okay, we're factoring this, you really are not doing much work, you're just taking the middle number and dividing by 2. All right, let's try this. So here's the first one. So we are going to write it in standard form and then identify the different pieces of information. To write it into standard form, we are doing a process called completing the square. So to complete the square, the first step that we are going to do is we're going to group the x's, we're going to group the y's, and then we're going to put the numbers on the other side of the equation. So what would that look like? Well, that would be, for this first one, x squared plus 8x's, because I want the group x's together, plus, and I'm going to leave a blank because I'm going to fill that in with a number. Now I'm going to group the y's, plus y squared plus 6y plus blank equals, I need this negative 10 to go to the other side of the equation. So if I put it on the other side of the equation, it's going to become positive 10 because I would just add 10 to both sides. So now our goal is to complete the square, and we've got to figure out what numbers can be filled into those blanks to make perfect square trinomials. Well, the way we do that is we look at this term, the 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so we do 8 divided by 2, which is 4, and then we do 4 squared, which is 16. So that's the number that's going to go in the first blank. But this is an equation. We have to keep it balanced. So whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So on one side, I have plus 16. So to keep it balanced, on the other side, I'm going to do plus 16. All right, let's try this with the y's. For the y's, I'm going to look at this middle term of 6. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9, so 9 is what goes in the blank. To keep the equation balanced, though, I have to add the same thing to both sides. If I don't do that, it's not equal, and therefore my equation is no good anymore. Now that you've done all that, you've done all the work, you just need to rewrite it. So first I'm going to look at this first part right here. I've created a perfect square trinomial. So if I'm trying to factor it, two numbers that multiply to 16 and multiply to 8 would be 4 and 4. Or if I just take half of 8, I get 4. So this is going to be x plus 4 plus. So that's where I got this first part. Then I'm going to look at the second trinomial, and I'm going to try and factor that. Okay, what two numbers multiply to 9 and add to 6? Or just take half of 6? Well, that's 3. So I get y plus 3 squared. Because it would really factor to y plus 3, but I can rewrite it as y plus 3 squared. Okay, so that's where I got this part. And now I need to look at the end and combine all those things together. So when I add them all together, I get 26 plus 9, which would be 35. Whoa, Can't write in highlighter. Take 2. 35. Okay, now that it's in this form, now we can identify all the different things. So the center is the opposite of each in the parentheses. So -4 for x, -3 for y, and the radius, this number here, 35, is the radius squared. So to solve, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I can, take 2. I can break that down to 5 and 7, but that's not going to simplify any, so my answer is just the square root of 35 for the radius. All right, let's try this again. We'll be able to go a little bit faster this time because we know what we're doing. Here's our second equation, x squared plus y squared minus 10x plus 80y minus 9. Okay, so first thing we want to do is group the x's and y's. So I'm going to write x squared minus 10x plus blank plus, on the other side, I'm going to do y squared plus 8y plus blank, and then that -9 has got to move to the other side of my equal sign. When I move it to the other side, I do that by adding 9 to both sides, so that gives me +9. All right, now I need to fill in the blanks. So, looking at the first one, I need to figure out what number is going to make this a perfect square trinomial. So to do that, I'm going to take -10 divided by 2, which is -5. -5 squared is +25. But to keep my equation balanced, I'm going to add 25 to the other side. On the second one, half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16, so I'm going to add 16 to the other side. All right, now I've done the work. Now we just need to write the equation. So looking at this first trinomial right here, if I were to factor it, the two numbers that multiply to 25 and add to -10 would be -5 and -5. So I could write x minus 5 squared. But I do not have to think about factoring it. I can just simply look at this middle term right here and take half of it. Half of -10 is -5. Plus, on the other one, this part right here is going to factor to, well, half of 8 is 4, so y plus 4 squared equals. And now on the other side, I have 9 plus 25 plus 16, which gives me 50. So the center, opposite of x, +5, -4. My radius squared is 50, so to find the radius, I'm going to take the square root. So I have 25 and 2, 5 and 5, so this is going to be 5 square root 2. 2 more we're going to look at. Number 3. Don't forget, you can always pause the video and write something down. You don't have to try and keep up. I know it's not realistic when you don't have the notes in front of you. All right, first step, group the x's and group the y's. So we can have x squared minus 2x plus blank plus y squared minus 12y plus blank equals, this 8 gets moved to the other side. To move it to the other side, I'm going to have to subtract it, so it's going to become -8 on the other side. All right, let's fill in the numbers. Half of -2 is -1. -1 squared is +1, so I'm going to add +1 to both sides. For the y's, half of ignore that. Half of -12 is -6. -6 squared is +36. Okay, so when I rewrite this, factoring the first trinomial, or just taking half of this middle number, I'm going to get x minus 1 squared. Plus over here would be y minus 6 squared, because half of -12 is 6. -6. On the other side, watch your signs. You have -8 plus 1 plus 36, which gives you, which gives you 29. So my center is 1, 6, and the radius is the square root of 29, which doesn't simplify. All right, we're going to do one more, and then you're done with your notes for today. Same thing. I want to group the x's and y's. So I'm going to have x squared. Oh, but there's no x. That's interesting. And now my thing won't move. Okay, so there's no x. So I'm just going to do plus blank. The y's would be y squared minus 14y plus blank equals. This +7 goes to the other side, so it becomes -7. All right, well, I think for the most part we can see over here for the y's, half of negative 14 is negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. So I know I'm going to have plus 49 over here. The tricky part is going to be what goes over here in this blank. Okay, well, the middle term, is there any middle x? No. So it's 0x, and half of 0 is 0, and 0 squared is 0. To keep it balanced, I have to add 0. Now, do you really need to write the 0 on the right? No, but that's where we're getting the numbers. Okay, so when this simplifies, it just simplifies to x squared plus y minus 7 squared equals 49 plus negative 7 would be positive 42. So your center, we've had one like this before, is 0, positive 7, and the radius is the square root of 42. So we have 2 and 21, 3 and 7. Oh, look, doesn't simplify at all. So we just get the square root of 42, and that's it. All right, try your homework on a separate sheet of paper and then submit it to Google Classroom when you're done.